This was a school in the village of Bilhohorivka. It was being used as a shelter when it was hit by an airstrike. Around 60 people are feared dead under this rubble. Russia is stepping up its assault on eastern and southern Ukraine. In Mariupol, they seek out the last Ukrainian fighters holed up in the vast Azovstal steel plant. Keep watching and see how they move, is the command made of this Russian drone operator. There are thought to be around 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers still determined to make one last stand.
It's one of Russia's most important days, a display of patriotism marked by a huge parade of soldiers and military hardware through Red Square. But the mood of Victory Day is very different this year as Russian troops continue to wage war across the border in Ukraine. In a speech, President Vladimir Putin stopped short of officially declaring war on Ukraine, instead suggesting NATO had been creating threats at its borders and telling troops the West had been preparing to invade Russian lands, including Crimea.
You're fighting for your motherland, for the future, so that no one forgets the lessons of World War II.
The White Helmets are at the forefront in a country torn apart by war. Often first on the scene when a bomb explodes, pulling survivors from the wreckage and providing first aid and transporting victims to the hospital. Now the group is passing on in its hard-earned knowledge to Ukrainian fighters.
The Russian war in Ukraine has grieved us. We suffered woes from the Russian bombings for 11 years. After seeing the Russians bombing the infrastructure and hospitals in the Ukrainian cities, we decided to do something to help the civil defense teams in Ukraine in an attempt to minimize their losses. We've produced videos to educate people on rescue efforts and first aid response. We've also produced videos on the unexploded bombs.
Gunmen in Nigeria killed at least 48 people in attacks on 3 villages in northwest Zamfara state. The attacks took place last Friday and were reported by a local official and residents on Sunday. The village of Damri was the worst hit. The gunmen killed 32 people, including 2 security personnel. In early January, gunmen killed more than 200 people in Zamfara state. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has called on the security forces to redouble their efforts to put an end to the killings.
Israeli security forces apprehended the 2 Palestinian terrorists who murdered 3 people with axes and knives in a brutal terror attack in Eilat Thursday night. On the 4th day of the manhunt, the 2 terrorists were caught hiding out in a forested area within Israel near Rosh Hashanah. Security forces identified the 2 suspects as 19-year-old Asad Alifai and 20-year-old Subhi Abu Shakir, both residents of the village of Romana near the Jenin area in the West Bank. Over the weekend, security forces expanded their search from the Elad area along the seam zone just east of the Green Line and west of Israel's separation barrier, in Arab-Israeli towns, and near the Rosh Ha'ain area, operating under the assumption that the terrorists were still within Israel and still had the potential to carry out another attack.
Even before polls opened at 6 in the morning, voters had started queuing up. Polling stations will open till 7 p.m., longer than usual to accommodate COVID-19 safety measures. Voters are choosing a president, vice president, senators, legislators, and thousands of local officials. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is one of the main contenders for the top job. His father, Ferdinand Marcos, was a dictator whose rule was marked by corruption and human rights abuses. A fact-checking initiative, Check.ph, says Marcos Jr. has benefited the most from misleading but positive posts on social media that attempt to whitewash his family's past.